All right, so what you're looking at is one part of the SkyNex system. We've actually been looking around IDEX for a while to try to find kind of anti-drone, low-cost anti-drone systems, and I think we started to find it here. So you've probably seen this before. This is from Rheinmetall, actually a collaboration between Rheinmetall and Edge, and this is the munition firing here. So this is just one piece. Stay with me here. So this is the actual munition proximity fuse, and you can see the shrapnel that would come out as it approaches the, could be a rocket, a missile, or a drone right there. These are the pieces of shrapnel that would detonate. Now, this whole system is called SkyNex. There's a couple different pieces here. We've got the radar system right up here. We've got the control station back in here, and then follow me around. So one SkyNex system is a control station, a radar, one of the Rheinmetall autocannons there, and then this baby. So this is a containerized 64 surface-to-air missile interceptors. So again, one consolidated system. We've got the main gun just moving around. Come over here so you can see this. So you've got the actual gun system here with a range out to around 4 kilometers, so you can gauge things relatively close in. But when you look at these missiles here, it can fire one of these every 5 seconds, and there's 64 in this container. So a little longer range here. These things are hitting targets at an 8,000 meter altitude out to 10 kilometer range. So that's not, you're not talking ICBM type things by any stretch, but helicopters, fighters, drones, relatively short range munitions. In a sense, this is kind of the last line of defense, if you will, right now. So pretty cool system, all things considered. And I should add, come over here to see the palletized piece of this. So because of the way that it's structured, and you can see kind of how the pods slide down in here, the way that it's structured means that you can just throw this on the back of a truck and haul it around, or have a bunch of these on a rail line or on a train moving from one location to another. So very easy to move this entire weapon system to the areas you actually need that air defense.
All right, so today we're taking a look at what I think are some of the most interesting new weapon systems and platforms on display at IDEX 2025. This is the largest military expo in the Middle East. It was held last week in Abu Dhabi. And what we're going to look at in this video is, of course, starting with a networked air defense system. We're going to move into drones and loitering munitions. We've got unmanned ground vehicles, and then we'll wrap up with a kind of concept for a new modular assault vehicle. Now, a couple corrections to this first video here. I did say that munition right at the beginning was proximity. I believe that's actually a timed fuse. And then a little later on, I said it fires 1 missile every 5 seconds. It's actually 5 missiles every 1 second, which is an insane rate of fire. Now, this is a collaboration. This SkyNex is a collaboration between Edge Group, which is a UAE-based defense company, and Rheinmetall, of course, a major German defense giant. It's not entirely clear to me, going to the Rheinmetall site, they have something very, very similar to this. It's not clear to me what the difference is between those two, or if Edge Group is just kind of selling this Rheinmetall model with Edge branding. But either way, I wanted to start with this one because I spent a lot of time walking through the show, a couple of days actually, always looking for what is the kind of cost-effective air defense that's being rolled out. You're going to see in this video very low-cost drones, and we still haven't seen, from what I can tell, a reliable, low-cost method of defending against those. I didn't find it in this show either, but I did want to highlight SkyNex because, from what I can tell, that is kind of the most effective, cost-effective means of air defense that I could find. But let's go ahead and head back inside the expo to check out some of the drones.
Hey, pay attention. So we have cardboard drones. These are called the DesertDart. These things, come back over here so you can take a look. $200 a piece. So it's actually a really small warhead, cardboard, seriously. Now there's probably some coating on this to make sure that it can actually operate if it gets even just a little bit wet. But $200 for a loitering munition is actually really effective when you talk, or really cost effective when you think about it. Now these guys will come up to the front here where you can see a little bit of the nose. You're talking about a very small warhead, about 1 pound all in. So really that's anti-personnel, maybe against unarmored vehicles, light-skinned vehicles, things like that. I mean, realistically, a dude riding a motorcycle gets hit with one of these, it's going to be a bad day. But I like this platform where they've got, what is this, 8 of these, 6 of these lined up. Looks like they can maybe fit a few more. And then come over here, I want to show you the actual drone itself. So this is a look at the DesertDart here. 15 kilometer range, and again, 1 pound payload, and all things considered pretty innovative, right? You can see a lot of use cases for something like this in the modern battlefield.
All right, so something that stood out to me with this DesertDart drone is this could really be utilized as kind of an addition to, say, a 60 or 81 millimeter mortar team, kind of fit that role within a maneuver unit. 1 pound warhead, not a lot. Got it. But you got to think about this as a precision strike munition out to 15 kilometers, which is pretty significant. I mean, for reference, that is outside the range of a 120 millimeter mortar system. So if you put this in the hands of like a platoon, squad, maybe even up to the company level, it's a very cheap means of being able to strike a specific target. Again, this might be anti-personnel. Hitting one dude out in the open, 1 pound explosive, 1 pound charge is going to do some work. Unarmored vehicles. But of course, if this thing goes up against a tank, the tank might not even notice that it was hit. But I do think there is a place for this. We're going to get into more drones with kind of a heavier payload, more anti-armor type capabilities, but I wouldn't sleep on this quite yet. Just, again, think of those short-range munitions, very inexpensive, and instead of trying to suppress an area with 60 millimeter mortars, you throw up 3, 4, 5 of these things, and you actually hit those targets one after the other.
All right, so this is like a drone swarm, except real life, and it's actually a real thing. So starting here, Hunter SP loitering munition. It's got a 30-kilometer range. And then look at this launching vehicle here. So this is the Hunter family multi-launcher. Right above me is the Hunter 10. That's a 100-kilometer range loiter munition. So big anti-armor type warhead. And I want you to come around here and take a look. 19 total munitions can come out of this thing like that. So we've got, let's see, 8 of the SPs up top, again, 30-kilometer range. That could be all different targets. We've got the Hunter 10 down here, 1, 2, 3. And let's go around to the other side. Because what you're seeing here isn't like a traditional rocket launcher. It actually goes back and forth. So it angles up to launch this side, and then we come around to the back side. And you'll see they can layer in even more of those Hunter SPs, 8 more over here. So all in, this Hunter family launcher system is essentially like a drone swarm in real life. 19 of these things coming out pretty quick, possibly engaging up to 19 different targets.
All right, so kind of like a multiple launch rocket system, but for loiter munitions. I like it. Now, the crew that we were talking to before this all got started mentioned that this launch platform is actually pretty modular. So it can fit on a wide variety of different vehicles, but also could be static. So if you think about a way the U.S. might use something like this, it could be in a FOB, downrange forward operating base. We might not necessarily need it moving around, being mobile on the back of a vehicle, but set up near a headquarters building, if you will. Just something to think about. Now, that Hunter SP is kind of like the edge group response to the short-range loiter munition, Switchblade, if you will. And actually, I'm going to veer off on a tangent here. So I spent a while talking to the Switchblade guys. Not a very impressive booth. They had a 300 and a 600 sitting out. But I asked them their thoughts on the FPV game right now and said, how are you innovating based off of kind of the rise of these FPVs? Because these, the Switchblades, you're talking about roughly $50,000 per unit, and we're seeing FPVs put together in basements in Ukraine with, 20, 30 plus kilometer range for, under $1,000 at times. And he kind of wrote it off. Big picture was essentially saying, we're selling to governments. Governments have a different requirement than, an individual unit in Ukraine might have right now. My takeaway is that they are kind of looking down still on the homemade drones. And I mean, I tried to push for what are your lessons learned? Are there any things you're taking from these groups right now, from what you're seeing on the battlefield, implementing into future iterations of the Switchblade? And look, doesn't sound like it at all. It feels like, again, personal opinion, I think that organization might be getting out-innovated by individuals and companies, quite frankly, not just in Ukraine, but in Russia, that are adapting to needs on the battlefield in real time. But either way, that SP in this video is kind of the edge group response. And we saw this from a lot of different companies at the show, coming up with less expensive options than the Switchblade 300. That said, that's as far as I could get in terms of price. So I don't know if that thing is, $40,000 per unit instead of 50, or if it's down significantly further. A lot of these systems, it was very, very hard to get the person or the team that was there to actually provide a genuine price range. But let's go ahead and head over to another piece of equipment here. And I've actually got a fair amount of pushback because these things were all over the show, unmanned ground vehicles.
Right, so we got the Themis Combat, this unmanned ground vehicle, and this has actually been used in Ukraine now for 2.5, almost 3 years. So this is the Themis Combat, and there's a couple different setups here. This one you can see, we've got a couple different weapon systems lined up. It's modular. So you can swap out whatever here is in the middle. We'll come over a little further. So you can swap all of this out. This one has, I believe those might be guided surface-to-surface rockets, but unguided as well. It could utilize any sort of drone defense type system. We've got small arms layered on top, and then the cameras, we've got the video back there that we showed just a second ago, or we will show, on how the operator can actually see this. Now, the way this is being utilized in Ukraine right now is they're swapping this middle portion out, and they're using it to bring supplies and ammunition, food and water, things like that to the front, and then they load up casualties. There's actually, you can load up a litter on each side here, and then they drive that back to the casualty collection point. So again, there's about 15 of those, or 15 of these, I think they said, in Ukraine right now and have been used for quite a while. So clearly pretty effective, but another piece here I want to show you is the treads. I don't know how easily you can tell on the camera, but these are kind of rubbery. And they said that it's actually getting pretty good use in Ukraine, going through the mud and the snow and everything like that. So look, I know that UGVs are kind of a challenge right now, and we haven't really figured those out. And there's a lot of different ways people have been trying to utilize them, but for what it's worth, this one right here, the Themis, is actually being utilized in combat operations, and at this point seems to be pretty effective. All right, so we got the viewing device here for a couple different unmanned ground vehicles. Behind us here we have the Havoc, which is pretty wild. We'll go show more of that here in a second. And then over here to the left, we've got a couple of the Themis combat systems that we'll go into more detail with shortly. But check out how this headset works. So I'm gonna put this on, and then look at the screen over here. And these are the different cameras. Zooming in. There's the top view. You can look all around. Let's see if we can find ourselves here. There you go. There's that idiot looking through a camera. We got the side views. And then as you're moving your head around, this is wild. So again, unmanned ground vehicle. Looks like the back view here. Unmanned ground vehicle. This is how the operators, this is what they would see.
All right, so the reason of all of the UGVs, and my God, like every other booth had one, and the vast majority of them had like machine guns and grenade launchers and rockets mounted on top, like, because it looks cool, right? I got it. The reason I wanted to show the Themis is this is the only one throughout the show, with the exception of the Ukrainian booth, but a note on the Ukrainian booth here in a minute, that is actually being utilized in this war. So for the most part, when talking with any other organization, we said, well, who are your buyers? Who are your users? And they went, can't get into that. Right here, we walked up and they said, this is being used in Ukraine right now. 15 have been sent to Ukraine, have been utilized. My understanding is one of those has been captured, and Russia's trying to figure out how they can actually use it. But the reason that it was kind of frustrating, if you will, it seemed like the UGVs were a theme. Everybody wanted to show that they could do this thing, unmanned ground vehicles. But the use cases, I'm still just not buying. And the reason I say that is because we can come up with all of the possibilities of what if you have 16 of these with machine guns and all of the different iterations and the layout and alongside maneuver forces or whatever. That's all fine and dandy, and it works in like war games. We're not seeing these utilized in Ukraine in any real capacity. So again, we are seeing them used by both sides to a degree. Some mine lane, we're seeing this one, as mentioned, bringing casualties back from the front or bringing supplies forward along known routes. But when it comes to adding in weapon systems, again, this war's been going on for 3 years. This general UGV technology has been possessed by Ukraine and Russia for quite a while now, and we're not seeing widespread use of armed unmanned ground systems in this war. So for all of the innovation we're seeing, if this is an area that's not really clicking, it seems to me like the takeaway is we don't have the right use case resolved yet. Now, I mentioned that there were also some of these on display in the Ukrainian section. The original goal here was to film an entire video with the Ukrainian folks. They had a couple different companies there showcasing their, drone drop munitions, unmanned ground vehicles, of course, drones, and quite a bit more. We went back and forth with them a couple different times, spent a lot of time talking with them, but at the end of the day, they were a little nervous to put some of this stuff out on the internet, just for operational security reasons, to include the faces and the names and things like that within the organization. So the plan was a long 20, 30-minute video of the Ukrainian defense industry at this exhibit. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to put that out anytime soon, but I am in touch with all those folks, and the goal is to put something out a little further down the road. But let's go ahead and head back outside. We're going to take a look at the Calidus section. This is some kind of modular assault vehicles, if you will.
All right, so this is the Wahash modular vehicle. This is actually pretty interesting. So this is Calidus manufacturing. It's a UAE company. This is their artillery platform, so wheeled artillery, auto loader. And let's see if we can back up a little bit over here. I want to show you something. If we come back, there's 3 different vehicles we're going to show. But if we come off to the side here, you can see, looking back at the artillery piece here, so a crew of we got 1 driver, 3 in the back, auto loader, 155 millimeter, so pretty traditional in that sense. But the difference here, if you come over, these are amphibious. So if you look at the back, this thing can actually traverse the water pretty easily. This isn't actually armor, it's the pontoons to help this cross whatever it might be. This piece here that you're looking at is an air defense asset, so you can see the modularity of where they're swapping out what's going on top of these different platforms. Let me show you this last one over here, and then we've actually got a little an assembly line to show what this looks like. If you go directly from, there's a cool view of the air defense piece here. So again, just swapping out the top piece, keeping the modular, keeping the kind of base model, and you switch over here. This is, you got the BMP3 turret. It's, you know, this does have a crew compartment. We looked in the back. It's pretty cool. It looks comfy. Can't film. Can't take pictures in the back. But you're starting to see, like, they've got the combination of artillery, wheeled artillery, air defense, infantry fighting vehicle, things like that. And come over here. I want to show you the assembly line. They've got a kind of a mock-up of what this would look like as they put this together. It's the cool piece here. So you can see kind of the breakdown of what this, I mean, you know, but when you get towards the end, you see the Wahash, the different style, where every single one of these is this modular type vehicle where you can swap out the top portions. Very similar. It reminds me a little bit of our strikers in the United States. When we went with the MGS, we had a command and control vehicle, things like that, where you can kind of swap out the different versions. This feels much more, it's different in that you're really just swapping out the top portion, it seems like right now. Now, in talking to the crew here, the guys at Calidus, they said these are specifically being designed for like a Middle East environment, a desert type environment. So it'll be interesting to see who actually picks up on these. They're huge, man. I mean, if you turn back around here then and look how big these things are, they're massive vehicles. So we'll see. Said they perform very well in the desert, very well in sand, and of course they have that amphibious capability.
All right, so I hope the video did that justice at showing just how big those things were. That was the first question I asked the Calidus rep when we went in there. I said, why are these so big? And he looked at me like that was a ridiculous question, but I stand by it. Those are significantly larger than just about anything we have in the U.S. military. And again, the Striker is kind of the comparison I'm going to, and these are way bigger than Strikers. But this wasn't really a theme in moving throughout the entire conference. It's not like everything was getting bigger. There were a handful of APCs and tanks that actually looked a little bit smaller than I would have expected. But at Calidus, I mean, they're going big. That's for sure. Now, something I wanted to highlight here that kind of stood out across the show was how many of you had actually heard of Calidus or these types of these Wahash vehicles before this video? Probably very few, right? Or how many people had heard of Edge Group before this video? Probably very few. And when I'm walking through that exhibit and seeing just what these different companies have to offer, the range and quality of products, to include, I should mention, China had some pretty high quality stuff over there. I know we always look at China and say it's Temu, it's crap, it's nothing. I know it's just displays, but it looked like they were churning out some quality stuff. Just be aware. And this was kind of eye-opening. Maybe I'm the naive American, but we only use, you know, U.S. equipment in the U.S. military. So that's what I'm used to looking at. And we sell so much abroad that we are, again, kind of the #1 defense contractor for the world, especially for our allies. So when you go to an event like this and you can see what these other companies are able to put together around the world, again, it's kind of eye-opening to see what else is out there. The options, I should say, that are out there. It's not just the United States anymore. And I think that's something worth keeping in mind. But hey, I had a great time at IDEX. Big thank you to Edge Group for bringing me out. They were great. They just kind of opened it up, said record whatever you want, talk about whatever you want, and cover the event, if you will. So some of this stuff is focused on Edge, other stuff isn't. There was, of course, no editorial control because that wouldn't be worth it at all. But great experience with Edge, great experience at IDEX, and hopefully through these videos I'm able to share some of that experience with you all. So this is the second video. We did a first video, kind of a walkthrough showing the overall event. This one trying to dive a little more into some of the equipment. And then the third video coming out here in a couple days is going to be hyper-focused on small arms. So rifles, pistols, machine guns, RPGs, things like that. But that's all I got for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.